and in specifically this video, eyes. I know that there's a lot of videos out there showing how to draw eyes with colored pencils, but they always do the eyes super big, and when you're doing a portrait, you're not doing an eye that big. So I just wanted to do one for, the right size for a portrait and show you my personal artistic technique. Okay, on to the video. Okay, so here I am outlining the eye, that way I don't lose my place on anything. I will especially mark out where my pupil is, because that is the easiest thing to lose when you start adding colors and layering colors down. And right here I'm gonna start blocking colors and laying down my darks, my midtones, and leaving out where my highlights are gonna be. The next most important thing to do is to make sure you outline the area that you're working on. For me, it was the iris. That way when you're laying down your colors, you don't lose the shape of the area that you're working on, because it is so easy to lose the shape as you're coloring. You'll just be like, oh, I think this is the line, and then all of a sudden, like, you're looking at your picture, you're like, whoa, what happened to my shape? For this portrait, it is actually Lana Del Rey, and we all know that she has blue eyes, but if you actually look at a lot of photos with people who have blue eyes, you will notice that unless they're in direct sunlight or they have light shining right on their eyes, a lot of the time their eyes won't even show up blue. So that's why I had to use a bunch of gray tones, mostly cool grays. I would recommend, if you're doing somebody with blue eyes, to use a bunch of cool grays, because they kind of give off that bluish tint to them. Warmer grays will kind of give it more of a brownish tint, and warmer grays are usually better to use with like skin and stuff. So I used a bunch of cooler gray tones, and I did use a little bit of green, because she has a tiny little bit of green in her eyes. Not very much though. So I made sure to put down all my darks, and then I put down like the mid-tones, and then I went in and I put down the green, but I don't want the green to show too much. So then I put gray over it, so you can tell that there's a hint of green there, but not too much. And here, you for the white of people's eyes, most of the time, they're not actually white. There's usually a lot of gray in them, sometimes even blue, and sometimes even different colors, because they'll like reflect the light, or not reflect the light, they'll reflect the color that they're around. So, but for this photo, her the white of her eyes were mostly just gray. So whenever you're doing the white of somebody's eyes, make sure you don't just leave them white and be like, okay, well, that's done. No, you need to put grays and sometimes like peaches and browns into the actual white of the eyes, to give it that depth, so it looks rounded and it looks like it's sunken into the eyelids. And here I'm just, for anything with color pencils, it's just layering, and when you're done layering, more layering. And here I zoomed out, that way you can see the rest of the eye a little bit better. And I'm gonna start working on her tear duct and her eyelids. So of course, like I said, make sure you outline those areas. That way you don't lose them while you're layering and coloring this area and coloring that area, because you don't want to lose where like stuff should be. Otherwise it'll end up melting all together and you don't want that. And with the tear duct and also the waterline, um, the thing I would say is, even though that it is a pink color, I wouldn't just go ahead and grab whatever pink and be like, okay, this is a good pink, right? This fuchsia pink. No. I would stick to more of peach tones for it, and also I actually used cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great color for the waterline, especially when the person is in a bit of like shadow and their face is in a bit of shadow. I find that using cinnamon very, very lightly on their waterline gives me a really good effect. And here I'm working on the eyelid. For me personally, I like to start with my shadows. I like to get all my shadows in, and then I start to go into like the mid tones, and then I do like the lighter colors last, because I find that like for me lighter shades tend to build up on the paper a lot faster than darker shades. So usually I'll come in with my lightest shade when I feel like I've gotten my darks and my mid-tones good enough, and I'll just go over my light shade and I'll actually go on top of the mid-tones and the shadows, just to blend them all in together so it looks like it's one, if that makes any sense. And here I'm starting to work on the eyebrow. This is just to get the shape of the eyebrow onto the paper. I'm definitely going to go back in there and define the eyebrow better and put more hairs in and different shades and colors in her eyebrow. That's just to make sure that I have the eyebrow on the paper, so again we don't lose the eyebrow while we're working on other stuff. And for the eyelashes, a tip that I have is, don't do the eyelashes too early when you're working on the skin, because later when you're trying to blend your skin and stuff, and you'll notice that your eyelashes will get in the way, and as you're trying to maybe combine some colors together, you'll get some of that some of the wax or wax bloom of the darker shades mixed in with your skin tones, and it'll make it look kind of muddy in those areas by the eyelashes. So be careful of that. I usually tend to save the eyelashes for pretty much last. And for the second eye, it's gonna be at this far out angle for the rest of the video, just so since the first eye was really close up and you got to see all the detail, I wanted this one to be far away. That way you can see how it looks at a farther distance, I guess. I don't anyways, so again here we're blocking the colors in, making sure we're outlining where everything needs to be. That way we don't lose any of our shapes as we're working on this project. And again, I usually start with my darker tones, then I go into my mid tones, and then I go into the very, very lightest tones. And usually with the lightest tones, you want to make sure that you leave those out. Just when you're coloring everything in, just leave that part of the paper alone where you want the brightest highlights to be, so it really stands out in your picture. And let's see. And again, I'm just putting a bunch of layers down to really make the eyes pop out of the picture, because she has such pretty eyes and they're in such a pretty shape. So I just really wanted her eyes to really pop out in this picture. And you'll notice here, actually, since this eye is in so much shadow, the iris is actually really dark, and I mostly just used a bunch of dark grays for the left eye, and for the highlight in this eye, since it also was in shadow, I actually ended up going over the highlight with a very soft gray, so it wouldn't stand out so much, so your eye would know, oh, okay, that eye's in shadow. And here I'm again making sure I'm putting grays down into the white part of the eye, because those are never just plain white. If you just leave it plain white, it'll look very flat and you won't have that depth in the eye like you normally have. And here I'm sorry, my hair, if you see like strands randomly coming into the view of the camera, it's actually my hair. It's like blowing from my fan. I'll make sure that for the rest of the videos I like try and contain my hair down. So there it is, my hair is so distracting. Anyways, here I'm beginning to work on the waterline, and I'm not going to do the nose or the rest of the face in this video. I'm going to save that for the next video. That way it can be slow and I can take you through what I'm doing in my thought process. But I'm making sure that I do outline the nose and like the cheek and all that stuff. That way we do not lose it when we're working on, you know, the eye in that corner of her face. And here I'm working on the white of her eye and her waterline, just trying to make sure I put her waterline in shadow. But when that eye is in shadow, be careful with the waterline, because even though it looks really dark and you almost want to put brown for her waterline, because when you're looking at it you're like, whoa, her waterline looks kind of brown. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would put down like a cinnamon or a type of pink color, and then put your brown on top of that to give it the pink a look like it's in shadow. Otherwise you're gonna end up making her waterline look kind of muddy, and you don't want that look. And here I'm taking my lighter flesh tone and mixing it in with my mid-tones and my darker tones. And if I feel like I lose too much of like the contrast or the dark contrast of her shadows, then I'll go over it again with a darker color just to hypen it up a bit. And a tip I have for doing skin tone, because I know it's really hard and I always have a hard time with it, is to actually have a separate piece of paper and practice, like, would this look good on her skin tone? Would it look good if I did, you know, this brown and this peach, or, you know, and sometimes even some purples can go into it, because I know I use I think the color is like violet gray or something like that. I know I use that in this piece. Again, I'm save the eyelashes for very last, or not very last, but pretty close to last. That way they don't make the skin look muddy. And here I started working on the skin a little bit, just so that I can get into the eyelashes area. I wanted to finish this area up so I wouldn't get the skin muddy up later. And again, it's just, I like to put down my darker colors, then my mid-tones, and then the lighter colors last. And here you can see me, now that I have my skin finished, I'm going in with a really dark pencil and finally putting in her eyelashes, and this is me finishing it up with the eyebrows. Okay, so this is the image for now. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!